The city skyline glittered like a crown of steel and glass, each building stabbing into the night sky as if competing to prove its power. Inside the tallest of them all, in the top-floor office of Harrington Global, Alexander Harrington stood by the glass wall, staring at the vast empire he had built with his own hands. He was known in the press as the ruthless billionaire, the man who destroyed competitors, who never lost a negotiation, who never allowed emotion to cloud his judgment. His reputation wasn't a mask, it was armor, the only way he had learned to survive a world that had taken his parents from him too early and forced him to carve his destiny with nothing but raw determination. Tonight, however, his sharp eyes weren't on the markets or the contracts, they were restless, unsettled. His assistant had given him news that unsettled the very foundation of his carefully built world. A woman was waiting downstairs, Sophia Lane, a name he hadn't spoken aloud in almost 3 years, but one that had haunted him every night. She had been the only woman he had ever let inside the fortress of his heart, and she had left. No explanations, no second chances, just gone. He had buried the pain in work, in money, in power, convincing himself he no longer cared, but she was here, and she hadn't come alone. He adjusted his tie, straightened his shoulders, and told his assistant to send her up. When the elevator chimed and the doors slid open, time stopped. Sophia stepped out, her hair falling in soft waves around her face, her eyes the same shade of stormy blue he remembered. She wore a simple dress, nothing of the high society glamour his world was filled with. And beside her, clinging shyly to her hand, was a small boy with curls as dark as Alexander's own and eyes so familiar it felt like a punch to the chest. Alexander's jaw tightened. He wanted to speak but found no words. Sophia was the first to break the silence. "Hello, Alexander." Her voice was soft, steady, but her hand trembled where it held the boy's. He stared at the child. The boy stared back, unafraid, curiosity sparkling in his eyes. Something inside Alexander cracked, though his expression remained carved from stone. "Who is he?" Alexander's voice was low, dangerous, but beneath it was something raw. Sophia's lips parted, and her eyes shimmered with tears. "He's your son." The words detonated inside him. His son, his blood, the ruthless billionaire who could face hostile boardrooms, federal inquiries, and billion-dollar losses without flinching, suddenly felt his chest collapse under the weight of 3 simple words. He looked at the boy again, this time not as a stranger but as something infinitely more terrifying, a piece of himself. Memories flooded human nights with Sophia when he had almost let himself believe in forever. The morning he had woken to find her gone, a note left behind with no explanation, the rage, the betrayal, the ache he had buried so deep, and now this. She hadn't just left him, she had taken his son. "You kept this from me?" His voice cracked like thunder, his eyes burning into her. Sophia stepped closer, shielding the boy slightly with her body. "I had my reasons." "Reasons?" He barked a bitter laugh, his fists clenched. "You took my son from me. Do you have any idea what you've done? Do you know what it means for me to find out like this, in my office, years too late?" Her chin lifted, though her voice trembled. "I did what I thought was best. You wary broken bar, you were so consumed by power. Alexander, you had no room for me, for us. When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. I didn't think you'd want him. I thought you'd see him as a distraction, a weakness." He flinched as if she had struck him. "A weakness?" His eyes darted to the boy, who was watching silently, sensing the tension but not understanding it. "Do you think I would ever call my son a weakness?" "You would have once." Sophia's eyes brimmed with tears now. "You weren't the man who could love anyone more than his empire. I thought if I stayed, he'd be caught in the storm of your world. So I left." The silence that followed was suffocating. Alexander turned away, pressing his hands against the glass wall, his reflection fractured against the city lights. The ruthless billionaire broke then, the steel shell cracking. His voice, when it came, was ragged. Do you know how many nights I cursed you? Do you know how many times I told myself I hated you for walking away? He turned, eyes blazing with something far deeper than rage. And all this time, my son was out there, mine. Sophia, you denied me years I will never get back. Sophia's tears slipped free. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry every day. But I couldn't risk him being unloved, being unwanted. Alexander's chest rose and fell as he fought for control. Then he crouched down, his eyes level with the boy's. The child looked back at him with a cautious smile. "Hi," he whispered. Alexander's throat closed. He had faced billion-dollar stakes without faltering, but this single word from a child brought him to his knees. His hand shook as he extended it. "Hi," he replied softly. The broken bar he stopped, choking on the words. "I'm your dad." The boy tilted his head. "Mommy said you were busy." Sophia closed her eyes at the innocence in his voice. Alexander swallowed hard. "I was, but I shouldn't have been." "Note when it comes to you." His eyes flicked up at Sophia, fierce with unspoken promises. "Never again." That night changed everything. Over the next weeks, Alexander's life turned upside down. He found himself rearranging meetings, delegating tasks, things he had never done before, just to spend hours with his son. He learned the boy's name Ethana and discovered how much he loved dinosaurs, how he laughed when Alexander tried to read bedtime stories in silly voices, how his tiny hand fit perfectly into his. The ruthless billionaire was undone by Lego towers and sticky fingers, by sleepy smiles and whispered goodnight, "Daddy." But it wasn't easy. The world Alexander had built was sharp, ruthless, filled with sharks who would devour any sign of weakness. News of Sophia and Ethan staying at his penthouse spread quickly, whispers in the media and among board members. Questions arose. Doubts whispered. Alexander faced it all with the same fire he always had. But now he had something more powerful than ambition. He had something to protect. Sophia watched him change, piece by piece. The man she had once left because she feared he could never love anything more than his empire was learning to love differently, fiercely, completely. She saw it in the way he knelt to tie Ethan's shoelaces, in the way he left his phone in another room during dinner, in the way his hard edges softened whenever Ethan called his name. One evening, as the city lights flickered outside the penthouse, Sophia stood by the balcony, watching Alexander and Ethan build a train set on the floor. Laughter filled the room, real and unguarded. Her heart ached. She had left to protect her child, but in doing so, she had robbed them both of years they could never get back. Later, when Ethan was asleep, she turned to Alexander. "I don't know if I was wrong or right to leave back then, but I do know I can't keep running." Alexander stepped closer, his hand brushing against hers. "You should never have had to run from me, Sophia." His voice broke. "I wasn't ready then, but I am now. For him, for us." She searched his face, the ruthless billionaire everyone feared, now standing before her with eyes filled not with power but with vulnerability. "Can you really let go of the man you were?" she whispered. "I don't want to let go of him," he said honestly, "because he built this world. But I will never again let that man stand in the way of being a father, or of being the man you need." He cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a tear. "You gave me a son, Sophia. You gave me a chance at something more than money and power. I will spend the rest of my life proving I deserve it." Her lips trembled, and before she could speak, his mouth claimed hers, fierce and desperate, years of anger and longing dissolving into something that felt like salvation. From that night, the ruthless billionaire was no longer just a headline. He was a man who discovered that love was not weakness but the greatest strength he had ever known. And as he tucked his son into bed and whispered goodnight, he knew that his empire, his power, his billions, all of it meant nothing compared to the single most important title he would ever hold: father.